Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is another edition of How Do I Do This Anyways? Today we're working on 20 ISOs number 16, this nice little bracket right here. Uh, let's get started. What we should see in it when you're done is it should look something like this. But instead of like just kind of hacking at it in order to make this with like just fillets and extrusions, we're going to go into how you would use the hole tool and how you would use the hole tool to put the hole in the center of geometry and some other little tidbit things that are just kind of nice to know. Also, how to pull some good measurements off of this thing. I'm going to go into details on that in order to get these curves here. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the base because I'm going to put the base down first, this bottom part, and then I'm going to make a rough tower for this thing. And then that's where we're going to get into some of the little nitty gritty things. So let's get started. 2D sketch. Again, I'm just going to start on this flat plane that in my mind works as our base plane. Rotate it around a little bit. And now I'm going to start out with a 2-point rectangle again. Click to put the origin right there. And then I'm going to go, how far am I going? 8 inches wide by 5 inches wide. Now I'm going to extrude that thing 1 inch because that's how thick that bottom base plate appears to me in my view. Cool. So now, in order to put this tower on here, I look at this and I see that this tower is centered in center from that length there. So I'm going to go ahead and create a midplane here. I'm going to go midplane between two planes. So click here, rotate around, click there. Okay. Now what this does is it gives me some nice geometry in order to base my other work on. So now I'm going to flip this around to the back in order to create a sketch on this back plane. I'm going to create this tower coming up here as kind of a primitive shape, but I want that centered on this. So that means I'm going to be using my 2-point center rectangle. Now, if I go and roll across this, it doesn't want to grab that midplane yet still. I have to project my geometry of that midplane into the sketch. So hover over it till it lights up, click it. Now, another thing we can do is grab it. Nah, that's not going to let me this time. Either way. So now I'm going to grab my 2-point center tool, and in order to use the 2-point center rectangle, you click the center and drag it out, right? Well, if I go ahead and do that, if I come along here, you see how it kind of sticks here at 4 inches over? Well, that's not just here on this line down here where this midplane is projected. That imaginary line extends forever. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and drop that on the midplane. Okay, and then I'm going to drag this down here until that purple line across the top of the plate lights up. I'm going to type in 4 in order to make sure that it's the width I want. And then I'm going to click here. By clicking, I'm creating coincidence constraints on that surface. It didn't quite stick with the dimension I wanted. So I'm just going to go ahead and click that, take this up here and type 4 there. And now I'm going to take it and dimension it this way as well, from here to here. And I want that to be 9 tall. But it's going to keep that center geometry right in line with that midplane. Okay? So now I've got this goofy looking thing standing here. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to finish that sketch so that way I can extrude it. So I click it. If I highlight one side or the other, only half of it that's highlighted lights up for extrusion. If I hover over the perimeter, the whole thing lights up. Now, I don't want to extrude backwards. I want to extrude the other way. And I also want to extrude a distance of 2 inches. Hit enter. Now, I've got this fun looking little tower. When I'm looking at this thing, I see that this whole surface is rounded, and that round continues on from here forward with this circular thing. This is like a bracket or something to hold a bearing. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create that circular geometry just by filleting it. Wrong corner. That one and that one. Now, looking at that, it looks like it's a 2-inch radius. So I'm going to look at that, try and do that. That looks right. Now I'm going to click OK. Now, what I need to do is I need to start a sketch here in order to create that circular protrusion coming forward on that plane. Click the center mouse to drag it around to pan it so you can actually see it. And now I want to project my geometry of this fillet again, these two fillets. By projecting the geometry, it tells me where the center is. And so that way my circle lines up with that center. So I want to hover my circle over until it turns to a green dot, click, and then I'm just going to drag out until it turns green again. You see how it kind of snapped to that 4-inch? Yeah, that just made a constraint to make this circle the same as that curve. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude that surface on out the extra 2 inches that it comes. And it looks like it was already set up to join and come in the right direction and be 2 inches. So we are happy here. Now what I want to do, I need to make that hole going through it. Okay. So that hole is a 2-inch diameter hole. I'm just going to go ahead and first click to start a 2D sketch and put that 2D sketch right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to project my geometry of this surface. You see how it comes up with that point? Now I'm going to introduce you to your hole tool in Inventor. It's simple. It's very similar to what you were dealing with in Fusion. Okay, we're going to select the hole type, which we just want that to be a standard simple hole. We're not worried about a seat because we're going through all. And we want to put that, you see how it hovers over? It's looking for a point to put this on, some geometry. We're going to give it that geometry. It's a 2-inch diameter, so we need to enter that here, just like we did in Fusion. Cool. Now we got a hole going through the center. Yay. Now, we still are lacking a couple of features. We're lacking these curves on the sides, and we are also lacking the holes and also these fillets as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this, since this is a symmetrical item, I'm going to make one side and then mirror to the other side. So the first bit of geometry I'm going to look at is these fillets right there. You see how the center points are marked, and it is 1, 2 squares over, and it is 1, 2 squares down to get to that curve. That indicates that they are just simple radii, the fact that it's the same distance horizontally as it is vertically. And that's the same on both sides. So that means that these are just a simple fillet. So we can use our fillet button. Select that line because that's the one that's filleted. Hey, it popped up automatically, and it is a 2-inch fillet. Okie dokie. Now, looking at the other one. You see how we have one complete box and then a half of a box in order to get to the center point of that? That means that the center of that curve is 1.5 inches in. So let's go ahead and make 1.5 inch fillet. There. And we're going to type in 1.5. Looks good. All right, so now we need to place our hole on the top of this thing. Just going to go ahead, start a 2D sketch, select the surface, and I'm going to go ahead and select project geometry because I want to project the geometry of that curve. And that's going to tell me where the center of that curve is because at the center of that curve is the center of the hole. So now that I have that center marked, I can create my circle. Actually, I'm not going to create a circle. I'm going to go ahead and finish that sketch. And I'm just going to grab the hole tool And you see how it wants to pop up and constrain on that? I'm going to let it. And now I'm going to type in the right number, which I believe is 1 inch. That looks appropriate. I want it to be through all, simple hole, no seat. All right. Now, I want to go ahead and I want to make sure everything that's over here is done over here. So I'm going to use the mirror pattern tool. Again, features are the first thing it wants. So I'm going to go ahead and select that feature and that feature and that feature. And then I'm going to select my mirror plane, which is that mid plane that I asked you to make before. And you see the preview that comes up? We're going to click OK on that. And that is one quick and easy way to do this. Also, it lets you use a couple of other tools and see exactly what some of the other potential strengths of the tools are. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. Take care.